Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. In this video, we're going to go over the concept of what is a tired landlord, right? I don't know if you ever heard of what tired landlords are, but if you would just do a quick Google search on tired landlord, right? You could see here listings with tired landlords in Atlanta, Georgia. What is a tired landlord? Your ultimate guide. Is there a so-called best way to find tired landlords? So here's the thing about real estate, because it's so glamorized in television, media, Instagram, TikTok, a lot of people think you just literally buy any old property, rent it out, and you are on the path to success, and it is so easy, right? And if that were true, landlords would not be a good source of deals for experienced or educated real estate investors. And what happens a lot is that people kind of like driving a car without taking any lessons, just buy real estate without figuring, they'll just figure out later once they know what to do or have the property, and then wondering what is going on, right? And unfortunately, the difference between being an adult and a child is that when you are an adult, nobody tells you you're really doing a good job, but they will certainly punish you for screwing up, right? Remember how it was to be like a kid when you had an adult figure tell you, hey, like, you're doing a good job and this is a bad job, get good grades, get praised, get bad grades, get punished? Well, when you're an adult, it works nothing like that. You only get punished when things go wrong, which is why it's kind of hard to figure out, am I doing things right? So that's what happens with a lot of tired landlords. They buy any old property, they might be negative cash flowing, they might not know how to screen their tenants or get a good tenant in the property. And in my opinion, any a good tenant is just one that pays, right? And keeps the house clean and we're done, right? And I literally work I guess 1 hour every 7 months to get a 14 grand check like this, which I'll go into a little bit later. So, for the tired landlord, the juice is not worth the squeeze. Okay. And if you ever go into biggerpockets.com, right, which is the biggest real estate investing website, biggerpockets.com, and look up the term good cash flow, they have an article about what is good cash flow, right? And then let's take a look here. And then it says, what is good cash flow for a rental property? It says when you aim for a good cash flow, you can, or when considering good cash flow, you can aim for $100 to $200 a month per unit. $100 to $200 a month. So let's say with the single family home, um, you bought a property at a discount, right? Because that's the way to go with real estate. You create wealth out of thin air literally on day one. But even if you have $100 discount, you may not even get good cash flow, or you could still even be in the negative. The interest rates are too high, right? So if you're in the most ideal situation, good cash flow would only be $200 a month. So let's say you got a property like this one right here, where you bought it at almost $100,000 discount or somewhere in that area, and you rented it out, and all you got was 200. So like, let's say you got a $200,000 loan, and for that $200,000 loan, and we'll just do this 200K loan, all you got was $200 of cash flow a month. Probably better off going to like med school or law school, because after you graduate with that 200K loan, if you do find a job, you could probably make 10 grand a month at least, right? Not $200 a month. And listen, I know that real estate has all these other benefits like taxes, depreciation, appreciation, what do you call it, mortgage pay down. I know all that, right? But let's just think about why there will be tired landlords. And if you're doing all this work and you have a $200,000 loan and you have to manage a tenant and find someone to live in your property, and you're only getting $200 a month, and that's in the most ideal scenario, meaning that your tenant moves out and you probably don't have property management, um, you'll understand why there are so many tired landlords out there, especially the mom and pop ones. The big corporate ones, they don't care because you're just a number to them. But if you're a mom and pop landlord and you have the best rental house and your tenant trashes it, you're gonna be emotionally like drained, right? So $200 a month is good cash flow. So let's just go over what we call landlord cowboy math. Okay, so let's say we have a plan to hold on to this real estate forever because we want that passive income. Now, if we're only getting $200 a month, $200 a month, and let's, we have a 30-year mortgage on it, so 12 months times 30 years, if you do the math, that's $72,000 of cash flow spread out over 30 years, right? That's you, the tired landlord. That's if everything goes right and your tenant never moves out, which is not going to happen, right? You get $72,000. And the reason why, even though your tenant is paying $2,000 a month or somewhere around that, and you're getting $72,000, is because you have debt, right? And let's say we have a $200,000 loan, and I don't know if you know what interest rates are on investment properties. They're higher than in personal properties because there's more of a risk, right? If crap hits the fan, we'll use that word. We're not going to use the S word. But if stuff hits the fan, or I did use the S word technically, then are you more likely to make sure your house is in order or an investment property, right? So you're going to make sure that your house is taken care of, and if they have to foreclose on your investment property, who cares? You don't live there, right? So let's say that we got an 8% loan for this $200,000, and we can kind of figure out by going to calculator.net and look at loan amortization, okay, for this $200,000 at a 30-year loan at 8%, okay, take a look on the right side how much interest we're paying over the total life of the loan. We pay more in interest than in the loan. So think about it like this, how many houses are you paying for? Even at a discount, right? But we'll just assume that 200,000, that's technically what we're paying for. How many houses are we paying for, right? We're paying for one, and well, actually, I think we're paying for two and a half. Okay, this 200,000, and then this 300,000. So you're paying almost like 160% interest, and we could actually get into actually. So this is 62% of what you pay, right? Goes to the loan, to the interest, and 38% is the actual loan, right? So we're paying pretty much double in interest than we are in principal. So we have to pay $528,000 in total, and the bank, what is the bank getting? Banks getting 328K in interest. Okay, so that's you, the landlord, and then this is the bank. And so right now you're what I would call the bank's unofficial middle management, because who's getting more bang for the buck and doing less work? Is it you, the landlord, or is it the bank? See, there's actually a saying that I learned from a note instructor, or seller finance note instructor, where it says be the bank but not the landlord. But let me show you with velocity banking the strategy of how we can pay off our debts easier and manage our cash flow, how we can reverse this situation, because right now the reason why so many landlords are tired is because the juice is not worth the squeeze, right? You're getting $200 a month of cash flow, and you do that for 30 years, you're going to make $72,000, where the bank is going to make $328,000 without doing anything. They probably have never even stepped in the property, right? Like they don't own it. You can have all the responsibilities of owning that rental property, and you're like, good gracious, why am I so tired? Because the juice is not worth the squeeze. So what we got to do is we got to reverse this situation. And here's the thing: I'm not dogging on rental real estate, because I can't think of any other asset where I literally just drive 1 hour, or maybe I could do this with stocks if I knew we're doing stocks, but any other asset where I can control it, right? I can control it, do a little bit of sprinkle magic for maybe 1 hour work every 7 months, and get a 14 grand check from one tenant, right? May 31st, 2024. So what we're going to do is we're going to reverse this situation. Okay, we're going to reverse the situation so that instead of being a tired landlord, no, we are going to be a happy, whoopsie, happy landlord. And the juice will be worth the squeeze, right? Okay, so let's go over how to reverse the situation, right? So we're going to use a strategy called velocity banking. And all velocity banking is a debt payoff strategy using lines of credit as your main tool. And I always say the same thing in every single video because it's so simple that you just have to go through the process. And there's only two requirements. Number one is your budget. So this is a debt attack plan, right? If you don't have any debt, you get, and you're making $3,000 of income and $3,000 expenses, velocity banking ain't going to help you because we are trying to attack debt to increase your cash flow. And that's why we have this budget. Our budget is our debt attack plan. Number two, we need a line of credit as our main operating account, a line of credit. So you might have never heard of the term. I have a friend in Los Angeles who owns real estate, and he had no idea what the term line of credit was. All it is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. And you're thinking, isn't that a credit card? It is. A credit card is one form of line of credit. There's other forms like personal, home equity. I got all of them. Right now, I think I have $272,000 in lines of credit. So it's not free money, it's the bank's money. But when I got a good deal or I have something that I need done for myself, I have the available capital just to swipe a card or click a button on the bank's website to get that cash and make money. Hopefully, make money, right? Okay. So we have a line of credit as our main operating account. And let's just assume, okay, that we have a $30,000, we'll say personal line of credit available to us, right? Personal line. So we'll say personal lines of credit, my experience, are 15% interest rates. So the cool thing about personal or home equity lines of credits, unlike a credit card, is that you can use the money on whatever you want. So on a credit card, I can't pay another credit card unless I do a balance transfer, nor can I pay loans with a credit card unless I'm using Plastique. But then Plastique nowadays has more restrictions. I can't use Visa anymore. They made a new rule on that. So I got to use MasterCard Discover. So you got to jump a little bit of hoops. But if I got a personal line of credit, I can use it to pay anything. In fact, I could borrow, $100 or $1,000 from that personal line of credit. And if the statement due date comes, right, and the statement due date says you owe $100 for the minimum payment, I could borrow that $100, put in my checking account, and then pay it back. So I'm gonna have to pay a little bit of interest, maybe like $10 or something. But it's crazy how much flexibility that I have with that personal line of credit. And this is going to be your main operating account going forward while you're paying off debt, right? We're going to do two things. We're going to increase our cash flow and have control of our money. It's that simple, okay? So here we have the average American's budget. Okay, so this is a person who literally makes $100,000 in most states, right? That's the after tax income. And we'll just say that we have two credit cards, a student loan, auto loan, and a mortgage. So we got a couple of debts. We got five of them. Now, should we be investing in real estate at this stage? I would say no, in my opinion. I'll tell you why. So let's say we get even at a rental property at a discount right here, this $300,000 property for $200,000. That's $100,000 discount. Even if we get it at a discount, okay, let's take a look at how much is that monthly payment. About 1,400. Okay, 1,400. So if my savings is about 1,600 a month, and let's say I effed up and I selected the wrong tenant, I'm gonna be at the edge, about $200 of savings a month, and that's a little bit too tight for me. I don't want to work in very tight margins where if everything goes wrong, then I'm gonna be sweating, right? And that's why landlords get tired because you don't have the leverage and the manpower to get to the next month, right? If you only got $200, which is literally almost paycheck to paycheck, and you have someone living in your house for free because they decide they're gonna be a deadbeat tenant, I don't want to deal with that. So what we're going to do, it's kind of like how in the airplanes they always tell you, put your mask on, right? Put your mask on before on your child. That's the same thing we got to do here. We got to kind of make our financials a little bit better so before we get that rental property, because even though the rental property will give you income, it's not just pure cash flow where if the tenant gives you $2,000 a month, you're going to get 1,900, right? And some people literally think that. In fact, a lot of politicians actually kind of speak like that in a lot of big cities where they do rent control. It's like, well, if you raise the rent, then you get all of it, right? Right. And that's totally not how it works. Okay. So let's go here. And what we're going to do is we're going to consolidate some of our cash, or I'm sorry, some of our debts to increase our cash flow on day one. So we're going to do two things. First, let's assume we have the same income. Number two, we're going to do the exact opposite of what Mr. Dave Ramsey teaches us, which is instead of having savings, we're going to have something called cash flow, which looks very similar to savings in the very beginning, right? But the most important thing is as we're paying off our debt, we don't have any savings. We're going to apply our entire paycheck to our debt, and it's going to decrease by our cash flow. So, what's the difference between B and C? The average American uses their checking account to pay for things, whereas Velocity Banking, we use our line of credit as our main operating account. Okay, so let's just do this. Let's move these high interest rate credit cards into our 15% line of credit. And that's 23,000, right? So let's go ahead and move this 23,000 here. Again, a home equity line of credit would actually be better because we're a homeowner and we're putting our home equity as collateral. So anytime you have collateral, guess what? You get better interest rates and more limits, right? And some people are like, "Oh my goodness, if you put, your home equity as collateral, they can take your home." Let me tell you something. Anybody who's in a second position lien, they don't want to foreclose. You know what I'm saying? Because they got to pay the first person off, and as a junior lien, you might not even get your money. Now, I'm just saying that if you don't have that much equity, that's kind of that might happen, especially in a declining market. Now, if you have no idea what I'm saying, all I'm saying is that that's the whole point of collateral. Whenever you offer collateral, you get better terms, right? So there's no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, so now we move this $23,000 of credit card debt. And guess what happens to these payments? Zero, zero. Oh my goodness. So look at here. We went from 1,600 to about 2,400 in day one, right? So we increased our cash flow position in day one. And now what we're going to do is this is the actual velocity banking strategy. Put our entire $6,000 into that line of credit, take our $3,000 of expenses out, and then we go down the balance by the cash flow, or the cash flow, or I'm sorry, the balance is going to get subtracted. It's going to decrease by our cash flow every single month. And I do these formulas every single video. So if you don't know how to do these formulas, just pause. But all it is to get the next month's balance as the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus this cash flow, which is 2386.47, right? And we have to calculate the interest after every single month. So let's go ahead. Whoopsie. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and calculate the interest. There's a little thing here called average because the interest on a line of credit is calculated by the average daily balance multiplied by 15%, right? 15% divided by 12, okay? And then what we do is copy and paste these formulas, okay? And then we can see here, if we scroll down, that in month 11, we've paid off all that credit card debt. Okay, month 11, we paid off all that credit card debt. And let's just write this as a milestone, 11 months, 23K of debt. Okay, now, after we paid off our high interest rate credit cards, you might be thinking, well, do I tackle the student loan? Do I tackle auto loan? Do I tackle the mortgage? Which one should I handle, or which debt should I try to get rid of? Now, to figure out which ones I like to get rid of, and I started using this method when someone gave me their spreadsheet and had 15 debts. I was like, what do I do with this? I started to use the cash flow index method because it's the easiest way to determine which way to pay off your debt. So, what is a cash flow index? All it is a formula. You can look it up on Google, where you take the balance of the loan and then you divide it by the monthly payment, right? And let's go ahead and do the cash flow index, even with our credit cards with the starting balances. So this equals 5,000 divided by 175. This one equals 18,000 divided by 585, right? Student loan is 20,000 divided by 217.05. Auto loan is 23,000 divided by 447.87. And then our mortgage is 225 divided by 948.61. Now, hold on. Did I screw up? Oh, it's 225,000. Now, what do these numbers mean? So think of it as like a ranking system, right? So what the low numbers mean is that this cash flow takes up a huge chunk, or I'm sorry, this payment takes up a huge chunk of your cash flow compared to the amount of debt that you borrowed, right? So let's just compare. We'll compare this, right? The loan and the mortgage. So would you pay $23,000 to get $447 back, or would you pay $225,000 to get $948 back, right? I definitely would not pay the $225,000 because I'm getting such little return on cash flow back when I pay off this loan. Whereas if I paid $23,000, that's basically, in terms of cash flow, half of this number, but I pay much less for that. That's essentially what these numbers mean, right? And that's why this mortgages have the biggest cash flow index number, because they're the ones you want to pay last because you get so little bang for your buck for paying it off, right? That's kind of the danger of the 30-year mortgages, because it's kind of like an illusion. We don't think it costs that much, but it really does. But in terms of cash flow, it's not costing us that much. But in terms of time and interest, it is. Okay. So next one. All right. So now let's go ahead and do this. Let me erase this right. Well, I'll keep it for now. But just be aware that for credit cards, the cash flow indexes usually are the same regardless of the month, because the payment changes along with the balance. Whereas with the loans, the cash flow indexes actually they actually do get lower over time, because the loan balance will get lower even though the payment stays the same. So now let's figure out, since 51 is the next lowest number, we're going to go ahead and put the figure out the balance of this auto loan after 11 months. So let's go right here, and we're at 23,000, and we'll say it's a 5-year car loan. And what did I put here? At 6.3%. Okay. And then after 11 months, so this is month 11 right here, we could see it's about 18 grand, right? 18 grand. Okay. And so now, all right, so now, okay, 18 grand, we got that. And now one of the things that we can do, actually, let me recalculate this cash flow index. Let's see how long, 18959.21. Okay, so one of the things that we can do is just shove this 18 grand into the line of credit and immediately get this $447 of cash flow back to ourselves. So we could just do this, right? 18,959. Okay, and then what happens to this payment right here, $447? We get it back. So now our cash flow is almost $3,000 at this moment. So 2,834.34. Okay. So let me go here, and right here at this month, we'll put 2,834.34. Okay. And now let's see how long it takes us to pay off this loan. And so at month 18, we paid off this auto loan. Okay, so month 18, and so that's 23 plus 23, that's 46K in 18 months. Not that bad. Okay, and so now the next one we're going to tackle is the student loan. Okay, so what's the student loan balance right now after 18 months? So let's go ahead and put that in our calculator here. And believe it or not, we don't have to actually use this amortization calculator. We could use something called a TMV calculator, time money value calculator. That'll like pop up these numbers. But I like to show this because you can see clearly where these numbers come from. Whereas if you use that time value of money calculator, it just pops up a number. You have no idea where it comes from. All right, so 20,000 at 5.5, and student loans are usually 10 years. All right, so 20,000. All right. Okay. So now we got to figure out at month 18, right? So that's about 2 years and 6 months. So month 18, all right? So should we start at 19? Yeah, let's start at 19. So at month 19, this is our balance, okay? So 17,156, and let's just calculate the new cash flow index, 17516.8, okay? So again, ideally, if we're going to pay it off, it should be under 50. But again, let's just see if we just do this, how long, again, so as you can see here, this has more bang for your buck. You get 19, if you pay 19 grand, you get $400, whereas you pay about 17 grand, you get $200. You see how that works? So that's how the cash flow index works. Again, I think because this balance is not that big, I still think we could put in our line of credit, but the savings itself, we might have to pay a little bit more interest than just directly paying the loan or paying in what we call in chunks or increments. But I'll show you what I mean by that a little bit later. But let's just move the 17 grand into the line of credit. So 17,516, okay? So 17,516, and then this goes to zero, and now we have 3,051.39 in cash flow. So let's go ahead and do that. And then it'll be 3, so not 2386 anymore. Wait a minute, did I screw up? Hold on. Why is this? Wait a minute. Did I 17516 2384? Oh, okay, good, good. Okay, I'm losing my mind here. Okay, so now we go here, and then now we subtract by 3051.39. Okay, so now let's see how long it takes us to pay off this car loan. About 24 months in total. So let's go ahead and highlight that. So 24 months, so 2 years is our student loan, and that's gonna be, what's 20 plus 46? That's 66K, right? Okay, so 66,000, and now after 2 years, we gotta find out what our mortgage balance is. So we're gonna do that right now. So 225,000 at 30 years at 3%, okay? 948.61. So 948.61, and let's figure out what the balance is after 2 years. So it's about 215K. Now, here's the thing. At this point, because now we've increased our cash flow, we paid most of our debt, this is probably the better time to invest in real estate than when you were right here. Because when you were right here, right, if your tenant didn't pay, you'd only have like $200 in savings, and that could be, again, that could cause a huge crunch, cash flow crunch. Whereas when you're right here, you've literally doubled your leftover money. You've literally doubled that. And so if your tenant doesn't pay, it's literally like being, right here, right? Because the monthly payment is about 1,400 a month for that 30 or 8% mortgage. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this, and let's assume that, hey, we're now ready to invest in rental real estate. Okay, now, one of the things that we can do is, let's just do this, and I'll show you how, even though we're using higher interest rates lines of credit, if we're doing something called chunking or incremental payoff, where we move pieces of that mortgage to a line of credit, as long as we have the cash flow, we could have paid off really quickly. And not only that, we could have control of our money, because what is the fear of overpaying our loan directly? Because anybody can do that, but nobody does. We have the statistics because the average person likes to refinance every 5 to 7 years. And if they could pay off a loan really quickly in 7 years, there would be nothing to refinance, right? There'd be nothing to refinance. Now, so as an alternative, we can overpay using a line of credit and still pretty much have the same result. And we have control of our money. Okay? So basically, it's kind of like this. Okay, so if I move, I don't know, 10,000 or 6,000 of this loan to the line of credit, then we could just do the same exact thing. In fact, let's just move $6,000 of the mortgage into the line of credit, okay? And how long is it going to take us to pay off that 6,000? 2 months. Whereas we take a look here, right? How long is it going to take us to pay off that 6,000? Almost a year if we just go by what the banks want us to do, right? Which is a little bit more than a year uh, to go from 215 to 209, which is what we did. I'm sorry, right here. Now, the calculation of how long it takes to pay off is a little bit more complicated because in this situation, when you're dealing with 30-year mortgages, you're still making the payment, monthly payment. So it's going to be it's going to be faster, or the predicted payoff is faster than if you do it what we call the poor man's method. So luckily we have this velocity banking calculator here. Now let's do this, okay? Instead of paying our own personal mortgage, we'll leave that for now, okay? We're gonna leave that for now, and we're gonna get a rental property. Again, we're gonna get a rental property like this, $200,000 loan at 8%, $200,000 loan, and all we gotta do, luckily with this velocity banking calculator, just put in the numbers, right? $200,000 loan, current balance is 200,000, 8%, 30 years, and what is the monthly payment? 200,000 at 8%, 1467.53. So 1467.53. Whoopsie. 53. And then the chunk amount is just how much you're transferring to the line of credit. And usually you could just make it to the same amount as your paycheck. So let me just hold off on that. So let's put our monthly income and expenses. So right now we're making $6,000, but luckily, okay, when we have rental real estate, we have additional income that we can use to bring down the loan. So let's say it's $6,000 plus $2,000 times 70%, because if a tenant gives you $2,000 a month, you have your own expenses as a landlord, taxes, insurance, maybe some maintenance and all that good stuff. So we assume you only get 70% of that monthly income, okay? And then our expenses are everything that we have to pay except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So we are trying to pay our personal mortgage and our other expenses. We have that. So we just put that in our general expenses right here, 2948.61, 2948.61. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's really important. We'll just say that we have a 15% personal line of credit. In general, so I've been experimenting with this. And okay, before I actually go on about my experiments, if you ever know where to get this calculator, this is actually from Renatus, is where I originally learned velocity banking from. So if you want to learn with Renatus, I actually make money selling their products as I'm an independent contracted marketer. So just to kind of throw that out there. But this is where I originally learned it from, and they provide this calculator. Now, let me go in here, okay? So one of the things I've been playing around, and if you have a low amount, so let's say like $10,000 or $6,000, the amount that you save is relatively the same. So let's say I move $6,000 from this mortgage to the line of credit, 6000, okay, at a 15%. You'll notice that the interest that I pay is about 40 grand, right? 40 grand. But let's say I put this whole thing into a line of credit, so 200,000, right? You'll notice that the interest almost doubles. So even though I'm saving money, I'm actually kind of throwing money out the window and wasting more time by putting this entire mortgage into a higher interest line of credit. Now, I'll actually throw you another nuance, okay? So if the line of credit interest rate is lower, and the only reason that I would see it's ever lower is if you have a great introductory rate. I remember when I got my first HELOC, they gave me like a 0.99% for 6 months or something like that. That was insane. But let's say I had a 1% line of credit. Oh, we're in heaven, right? 1%. Now here's the other crazy thing. If you do it in small chunks, right? So let's say $6,000, it's still, right? Isn't that crazy? So if you can have a lower interest rate line of credit than the loan, I would engulf that thing, throw that entire thing in the line of credit. But if I have a lower interest rate and I do little chunking, meaning I just put pieces of, like, transfer the pieces of that line of credit into a lower, I'm sorry, loan to a lower interest rate a line of credit, it's really weird how, whether it's 1% or let's say 10%, you see how the numbers are almost practically the same. So we'll do 15, right? That's an extra $1,000. But if I put the whole thing in a 15% line of credit, then this doubles. But if it's a lower interest rate, it it has a huge effect. So, moral of the story: if the interest rate is lower, you want to put the whole thing in a line of credit, right? But if the interest rate is higher, so let's say 15%, you don't want to put the whole thing in a line of credit. And regardless of the interest rate, so if it's 15 or, we'll say even 30, all the numbers are kind of similar. It's like, kind of, obviously you want the lowest interest rate as possible, but this chunking thing, for some reason, I don't know why, is resistant to the interest rate. Now it does affect it, but it's not it doesn't affect it in the way that you think it would, just as long as you have the cash flow. So now we see here that we paid off this rental property in 4.6 years, and we only paid 40K of interest. Okay, so now let's go back here, and just to kind of brag, this is my latest rental check from tenant, but my tenant pays in every 6 to 7 months or upfront. But let's just go back here about the tired landlord versus the happy landlord, right? So we don't want to do this anymore. So let's be the happy landlord, okay? Happy landlord. And the juice is worth the squeeze. And let's calculate our cash flow, okay? So we're not going to have this pity $200 cash flow. What we're going to do is, for the first 4.6 years, right? We're going to call it seeding. I don't know if this is even a good word. Seeding our cash flow at $0 for 4.6 years. 4.6 years. So for 4.6 years, we're not going to take out any money from the rental property, right? No money. We're just going to put our income, the tenant's income, and then after 4.6 years, that thing's going to be paid off, right? And so now our cash flow, this is what we call our harvest, right? So 4.6 years, we had to plant the seeds, and then our harvest is $1,700 a month. Again, even if we're just going to assume that we have $2,000 a month in our rental income, we get 70% of it, which is our profit, because we don't have any debt. And then we do that for 12, not 30 years, because again, we're not doing that. We're going to sacrifice for 4.6, and I don't like to use a sacrifice. We're going to plant our seeds for 4.6 years, and it's going to be 25.4 years of cash flow. So let's go ahead and calculate this. Okay, we're going to calculate this. So let me do it in my calculator. 1,700 times 12 times 25.4. So that's going to be $518,000 of cash flow. Okay, and now what does the bank get? All right, let's go ahead and go back to our Velocity Banking calculator. 40K, 40K. Okay, so 40K of interest. I'm a happy landlord because now the juice is worth the squeeze. Yeah, I gotta wait a little bit to pay off my 30-year mortgage in about 4 years, but I'm gonna get $1,700 a month in cash flow. And let's say I hold it for that same amount within that 30-year period. I'm not gonna get this $72,000 in 30 years because, man, I'm tired and juice ain't worth the squeeze. I'm I'm gonna experience the fruits of my passive income. And as I said before, with my tenant, I literally just work 1 hour every 7 months. Isn't that crazy? 1 hour, and if there's an issue, my tenant's gonna call me, right? If okay, so I'll just stop with that. But again, happy landlord, juice is worth the squeeze. There's gonna be a seed period of 4.6 years, according to this situation. and then we're going to harvest and then experience that $1,700 of cash flow a month. And hey, if I got to borrow money and the makes a little bit, 40K, that's okay with me. I just don't want to make 328,000. Like that's ridiculous. I'm doing all the work, right? Here you're the bank's unofficial middle management. Here you're the business owner, entrepreneur, and the bank's just your third party vendor, right? So if you want to keep going with this, you can certainly do that because all you got to do is rinse and repeat. So you get another $200,000 house or $300,000 house for $200,000, and then you just combine, let's say you get a second rental property, combine all your incomes, and then bam, in the third house is going to be paid off in 3.4 years. So you got the snowball effect going on of having, your entire rental portfolio or retirement portfolio in about 10 years. And that's if you're not working that hard. You're getting one house every 3 to 4 years, right? So, all right. So this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And as you can see here, we've done velocity banking math to kind of figure out why landlords are so tired, why people are writing so many articles about them doing rental real estate and getting sick of it and wanting to sell it for a discount because nobody went over the math with them about how to make money with rental properties, right? It's a good vast majority of them. All right. Okay, well, that's it for today. Happy Friday. And we'll try to crank out more videos tomorrow and enjoy your weekend, everybody.